Today we're going to be talking about labeling theory and demonstrating that through a classroom setting. Intro to labeling theory. Frank Tannenbaum was an influential figure in the development of labeling theory. He was a sociologist who studied crime and deviance, particularly focusing on the interaction between individuals and the criminal justice system. Tannenbaum's work, especially his book Crime and Community, published in 1938, laid the groundwork for what would later become known as labeling theory. He introduced the concept of dramatization of evil, which essentially means that when society reacts to certain behaviors as deviant or criminal, it can actually amplify and perpetuate those behaviors. His ideas were significant because they challenged the prevailing notion at the time that criminal behavior was solely the result of individual pathology or personal choice. Instead, Tannenbaum emphasized the importance of social interactions and societal reactions in shaping individuals' behavior. Later sociologists like Howard Becker and Edwin Lemert expanded on Tannenbaum's ideas and helped to further develop the labeling perspective in sociology. Howard Becker was one of the pioneers in this field. He talked about how society labels certain behaviors as deviant and how those labels can shape a person's self-identity and future actions. Becker famously said, "Deviance is not a quality of the act a person commits, but rather a consequence of the application by others of rules and sanctions to an offender." Edwin Lemert built on Becker's ideas. Lemert distinguished between primary deviance and secondary deviance. He argued that it's not the act itself that's the biggest problem, it's the societal reaction to the act that really matters. Today, our group decided to demonstrate labeling theory through a classroom setting. We have Asia as a professor, Dane as the good guy turned bully, Janet as a classmate and victim, and I, Angel, am narrating. Welcome to labeling theory in the classroom.
What did you do last night?
Nothing. Just watching movies.
Hey, you know what we're doing in class today?
I think she said we're watching a video or something.
Did you do the homework too?
Oh no, I didn't get a chance.
Damn. Well, hey, I'll be in class later.
See you later.
How are you doing today, Miss Jen? Today we're going to be watching a labeling theory video. Hold on, I'm going to go lower the lights and then I'll start the video. And you will have to take some notes on this video, so please get out a piece of paper and pen.
Labels. We give people a number of labels based on who we think they are. But perception and time have changed, and so have medical marijuana laws. In the U.S., medical marijuana laws vary by state, and as of the making of this...
Excuse me, Mr. Dane, that would not be tolerated. Not only are you late, but you walk past a student and close her laptop. I would not accept that. Please exit out of my class.
Video, some states have not legalized.
Damn, why does that call bullying class for the first time? What the hell?
Here we see an example of primary deviance. Dane dips his toe into the pool of rule breaking. It's the first little step into doing something society might frown upon. In this case, being late to class and slamming his classmate's computer shut. The thing about primary deviance, it's not usually a big deal. It's like a one-time thing, a blip on the radar. Maybe he was just testing the waters or going along with what his friends are doing. And most of the time, nobody really makes a big fuss about it. It's like he made a mistake, but who hasn't? The key here is that it doesn't usually get you labeled as a bad kid. It's just seen as a minor slip-up, but hold on tight because here comes the twist. Primary deviance doesn't usually lead to major consequences on its own. It's what happens next that can turn up the heat. Watch what takes place at the next day in class.
Good afternoon, class. Today we're going to be watching another video on labeling theory. Go ahead and have a seat for me. Please get out a piece of paper and pen, because y'all will take notes on this and turn this in after class.
Hey, can I get a
Labeling theory is a theory that explains how labeling an individual may result in the individual engaging in behaviors that match the label. It's essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy. By labeling an individual, that individual ends up engaging in behaviors that match the label. Now, Labeling theory is not applied arbitrarily to all labels. Sociologists typically apply this theory to deviant roles that perform deviant behaviors. And to be clear, deviant were skipping school, breaking curfew, those kinds of behaviors that do not fit societal norms. Now, to get a better understanding of how this labeling theory works, let's talk about the two stages of labeling theory.
I'm sorry, class, but Mr. Dane, can you please excuse yourself? This is the second day I had to tell you something. Bullying will not be accepted in my class. Please exit out of my classroom.
For deviance.
And secondary words I call bully. I guess I'm gonna show them tomorrow.
Here we see Dane start to internalize the word bully. Imagine you're in a room filled with people and everyone's whispering about you, saying, "Hey, you're a troublemaker." At first you might brush it off, thinking, "No, that's not me." But the more you hear it, the more it starts to sink in. You start to wonder, maybe they're right, maybe I am a troublemaker. That's the internalization aspect of labeling theory in action. We see Dane taking those labels that his professor and classmates slap onto him and wear them like a second skin. Eventually, you start to believe those labels, and they become a part of how you see yourself. And once you start seeing yourself through that lens, it can affect how you behave. So internalization is all about how those labels we get from society seep into our minds and become a part of who we are. It's like a sneaky little voice whispering in your ear, shaping how you see yourself and how you act in the world. This is why he says, "I'll show them." We also see acceptance in this clip. Dane is now labeled a troublemaker by his teachers and peers. Initially, he resists this label, thinking that's not who I am, and he's kind of in shock. However, as time goes on and he consistently faces negative reactions or treatment based on this label, he starts to accept it. Acceptance here doesn't necessarily mean you agree with the label or see it as a positive trait. Instead, it's more about acknowledging that others perceive you in a certain way and starting to incorporate that perception into your self-concept. You might begin to believe that maybe there's some truth to the label. You might feel pressured to conform to it because that's how others expect you to behave. This acceptance can be influenced by various factors, such as repeated interactions with those who label you, societal norms and expectations, or even your own experiences and observations of how you're treated based on the label. Over time, this acceptance can shape your behavior and identity as you start to align your actions with the perceived expectations associated with the label. When Dane arrives to class on the third day, he's fully internalized and accepted his role as bully. Watch how he
Good
behaves.
afternoon, class. Please grab a worksheet on your way to your desk because we will watch a video today. Yeah, we'll have to write about it.
Now, at this point, it's still not quite clear why being labeled a deviant record they have. Other families don't want their children to spend time with that teenager, and that teenager may also have a tough time finding a job in society. So because of that, the teenager continues to perform. Society does play a role in this labeling theory of
Sorry, class. Dean, will you please excuse yourself? This is the third day I had to tell you something about bullying Jane. That will not be accepted in my class. Please leave and do not return.
Here we see Dane's transition to secondary deviance. This transition is like stepping into a deeper pool of trouble after dipping your toe in primary deviance. Dane has been labeled as a bully for picking on his classmate a few times. At first, it's no big deal, just a minor slip-up. But then, because everyone sees him as a bully, he starts to see himself that way too. It's like the label becomes a part of who he is. This is where it gets tricky. Once one starts seeing themselves as a troublemaker, they might think, well, if everyone thinks I'm a troublemaker, I might as well live up to it. So they start skipping class more often, maybe getting into fights, or just causing more trouble in general because that's what's expected of them. This is the transition to secondary deviance. It's when behavior starts to escalate in response to the label society has placed. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You act the way people expect you to act because that's the role you've been given, and the cycle continues. The more you engage in deviant behavior, the more the label sticks and the harder it becomes to break free from it. It's like being trapped in a never-ending loop of trouble, all because of that label that society put on you. In conclusion, Dane displayed all the steps of labeling theory. A minor childish slip-up transformed into a major classroom disruption. He went through all the steps of a deviant as defined by Howard Becker and built upon by Edwin Lemert. Labeling theory demonstrates why stigmas are harmful to society and how they can intensify criminal behavior. Stigmas are the negative beliefs or stereotypes society attaches to certain traits, behaviors, or identities. Now think of labeling theory as the process that slaps those same stigmas onto individuals. Once that label sticks, it becomes a stigma that's hard to shake off. The person might start to internalize that stigma, and this can lead to all sorts of negative consequences like low self-esteem, social isolation, and even reluctance to seek change. Stigmas aren't just harmless words. They can have real-world impact on people's lives. They can affect how they're treated by others, the opportunities they have access to, and even their own mental health. So, stigmas and labeling theory are like a vicious cycle. Society slaps on the labels, those labels become stigmas, and those stigmas feed back into the labels, reinforcing the whole thing. It's a reminder of how powerful words and perceptions can be in shaping our experiences and shows an example of some disadvantages of labeling theory.